Hi, team. I know so many of you, but now I can't see your faces, which is perfect. Because I was saying earlier, like, talking in front of 200 people I don't know is fine. Talking in front of 63 people I do know well for 28 years is a whole other level of pressure. And especially tonight, as I talk, there are people in this room who were a key part of my entrepreneurial story, and so that's pretty special. And you certainly know who you are. So that's a pretty neat full circle that I didn't imagine happening. But tonight, what I'm going to talk about, teed up by our beautiful friend Drew, and I love what Drew said about the things that are our reality, because we all want you to leave here tonight and make these ideas your reality, right? So, like, if I ever had a superhero power, what I'd want was to make other people think my ideas were their ideas, especially politicians, right? Because then you could get it done. Sorry to put a dark twist on your concept, Drew. Anyhow, so tonight I want to talk about a concept that really sort of galvanized for me, pardon the buzzword, during my time at Startup Colorado and the work that I did in service to communities across rural Colorado, and it's the Community Microloan Fund. And microloan funds have existed for a long time and take lots of different shapes around the world. What really came home for me was the importance of them, especially for rural development. And so if we look at what I did over my 4 years at Startup Colorado with my team, we worked corner to corner across the state, building resources and a network for rural entrepreneurs no matter where they lived. And in Colorado, that's complex. We know that rural is a big umbrella. And so rural can mean a community of 60, it can mean a community of 6,000, it can mean a community of 60,000, right? It's almost an unfair definition or delineation against urban, right? It's everything outside of the urban context, so it's complex to solve for. But if you look at the work that we did, if I look at the time that I spent in all of these communities, putting in about 25,000 miles a year, the one thing I came back to that I would recommend for all of them was a community microloan fund, and we'll talk about why. Can everyone hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Good? Good. Okay. So what I want to step back and look at a little bit from a small business and entrepreneurial standpoint is the traditional capital funnel and the way that we look at capital that start businesses and some of the challenges with that. So here you have, a lot of entrepreneurs bootstrap. They've saved some money. Maybe there's some family money, some inheritance. Then we can move into areas where they have private loans and bank loans that they can access. And then, of course, getting into other tiers of angel funds and VC, venture capital. So, of course, this isn't everything, but these are the general buckets that you see companies start from. And that's really important to look at. And there's challenges to each of them. So, and some of the challenges is that bootstrapping can be hard. Lots of entrepreneurs, especially rural ones, prefer to bootstrap. It can be hard during times of economic hardship, right? We see less and less savings for Americans. We're on the cusp of seeing less and less home ownership where they can leverage their home for a HELOC or a home equity line of credit. Less and less family money that they could lean on to bootstrap a business. So I think on the midterm and long-term horizon, it's important to look at how to support bootstrap capital. Also, when it comes to private loans and bank loans, they can be hard to attain without sufficient assets. Again, if you don't own a home, you don't have a lot to leverage to get that loan, right? So we have to be thinking about some of these impacts on the horizon. A lot of times, bank loans are going to want to see historical revenues, and that can be really hard if you're a startup. And often these loans can require bridge capital, and so bridge capital is an important component of this as well. Because if you're looking at, say, an SBA loan, a small business administration loan space for $250,000 to expand your existing business, you might need $50,000 to $75,000 at the table to get that funding. Where are you going to get that funding? We need more mechanisms to release money and move money for these companies. And then lastly, not all business models are suited to angel and VC. So in startup culture, there's a lot of focus on these two tiers, but especially in the rural context, this doesn't serve all businesses, right? These are unique, but all of these are important, and all of these are important in ecosystem. But what I like about community microloan funds is that they help service all of it. They help service the funnel. So a community microloan fund could come in and complement bootstrap capital. An entrepreneur could have saved $10,000 or $20,000 to start up their business. and need more capital to actually round out their startup package financially. And a community microloan fund could come in to be a mechanism to match that. Additionally, that microloan fund could be the gap funding to access the loan, right? The bigger SBA loan, the private loan that helps move that external money into a community, into a business. And then at the most base layer of the funnel, while all of these things help mature companies who may be suited for angel capital and VC, a microloan fund is just one more component of that. So it helps move and level up companies through the levels of capital based on where they may be starting. But what I love about this, too, from a community development standpoint and from a rural standpoint, is it can support new and existing businesses. And it can also inspire entrepreneurship across all demographics and business types. And this, to me, is really important because especially in startup culture, when we look at small business, and something that became dearly important to us at Startup Colorado was we never wanted to, inside of Startup Colorado, inadvertently create classes of entrepreneurs. If you're the baker and you're starting a bakery, you are an equal entrepreneur to the person putting parts in space. You are taking the same agency and the same risk to go into business. And so a community microloan fund can create that level foundation and platform from which all businesses can start, along with these other mechanisms. So from a philosophical standpoint and a community standpoint, these things are important as well because I think it's about investing in your people, that they are your gold. We spend a lot of time in our communities looking for how we'll attract things from the outside in to bring money in, and this helps stop, pivot, and put an equal weight on the scale to say, how are we going to invest in what's here? How are we going to match this, which you heard in my bio is my mantra in life. Everything I do comes back to this. And it's why it's certainly something I'm passionate about. But if we look at our communities, you know, it's the potential of ideas, the people behind them and the places they create. All the people who create the places here, all of our entrepreneurs. They're core to our fabric. This concept that we're looking at around community microloan funds, I believe sustains access to opportunity. And the places that I came to learn about it in the most meaningful way over 4 years came from places far outside, places we consider startup meccas like the Bay Area and New York. Places that are doing this, one of the strongest community microloan funds is Kansas. And I'll send you to Network Kansas for more information at some point because they do a phenomenal job. I learned about this from third world countries. I learned about this from people doing entrepreneurship in places like Africa. So Colorado has a healthy ego on it, so we really took our time to look outside the box. Where were people doing a lot more with less to create something meaningful? And these are, you know, when we look at the sustained access to opportunity, and this is stuff we can talk, you know, more about at the table tonight, but they're pretty easy fundamentally when you look at them. They're managed by existing fiduciary agents in your community, like foundations. I warned them this was coming. And local banks. I thought about not warning because it's fun. But if it's managed by a foundation, then you can make tax-deductible contributions to it. Am I at 1? 2. Okay, thank you. They can assist with everything from equipment purchases, real estate down payments, and loan access, right? They can start with increments as low as $500. And the average that people say it should be targeting is about $75,000, and that's just based on my research of funds across the country. They have lower fixed interest rates. One of the beautiful things about them when we think about people having less assets or needing to look at new ways of lending capital with lower guarantees, they can be character-based. They can be managed by nonprofit lenders and structures. And on average, they have a very low default rate. That's a 1.5% default rate. And they're empowering your community. And I think from a philanthropic standpoint, they can unearth dormant capital in your community. There's money in every town. Some of it's playing philanthropically, and a lot of it isn't really built to grow into your angel capital, your VC capital. People with that money may not want to move in those directions to invest in business. But investing in a fund that creates access and entrepreneurship and empowerment in your community becomes more interesting. And it can inspire a new breed of philanthropist, right? People who are excited to donate to something that grows. So that's the short and sweet of it with a lot of detail. My clicker died. That's okay. This is where to start. Very simple. Nothing to say here. I'm not going to add more to this at this time. I just want to say I think this is something really important to create. And what I'll close with is that, I've been here since I was 17. This is my 28th year here. There are people in this room who raised me, quite frankly, and there are people in this room who helped me fund my business when I needed it. So I am the result of community showing up for an entrepreneur. So thank you.